Unit 3, page 23. Read. Exercise 2. Read and listen to the text.
The origin of inspiration. How are discoveries made? We can learn a lot about the origins of inspiration from the famous account of Archimedes' Eureka moment in his monumental discovery in 260 BC. As the story goes, the king of Syracuse had commissioned a goldsmith to make an elaborate golden crown. The goldsmith was known for his great skill, and indeed, he crafted a fine crown for the king. However, the king was suspicious by nature, and he suspected that the goldsmith may have mixed silver with the gold used in the crown. Believing he had been charged too much for the crown, the king asked Archimedes to assist him in proving his case. Could Archimedes confirm the king's suspicions? Archimedes knew that he would be rewarded considerably for finding the answer and safe from trouble with the king so long as he did not damage the crown in finding the truth. The easiest way to prove whether the crown was pure gold would be to melt the crown into a block and measure its density, as gold is more dense than silver. But this was out of the question. Melting the crown would destroy it. Archimedes was frustrated. He faced setback after setback. He found that constantly thinking about the problem exacerbated his frustration. So he decided to do something different. Take a long, warm bath. Archimedes believed that he could overcome his lack of inspiration provided that he relaxed and allowed a breakthrough to emerge. So Archimedes filled his tub with water, and as he lowered himself into it, the water level rose, and some of the water spilled over the top of the tub and onto the floor. In an instant, Archimedes realized the significance of this. He could measure the volume of the king's crown by submerging it in a tub of water. When the crown was put in the water level would rise as the crown displaced it. The shape of the crown was irrelevant, and more importantly, putting the crown under water would not damage it. The submerged crown would displace an amount of water equal to its own volume. Archimedes worked out that by dividing the mass of the crown by the volume of water displaced, the density of the crown could be calculated. If cheaper and less dense metals such as silver had been added, the density of the crown would be lower than the density of gold. In an instant, Archimedes leapt from the tub, shouting, "Eureka! Eureka!" or "I found it! I found it!" This incident provides some insight into an important ingredient for inspiration: relaxation. Intelligence alone was not enough to enable Archimedes to solve his problem. He needed something else to make his discovery, specifically the relaxation a warm bath offered. He needed to take a break from thinking. This story shows that relaxation and knowledge go hand in hand when it comes to inspiration. If Archimedes hadn't watched the water flow over the top of his bathtub, he probably wouldn't have realized that he could find the crown's purity by measuring its density. Conversely, someone who did not have Archimedes' mathematical and scientific expertise would have watched the water flow onto the floor without coming to any conclusion at all.
Unit 3, page 25. Explore. Exercise 1. Read and listen to the dialogue.
The invention of Velcro was the result of an accidental discovery by the Swiss engineer George de Mestral. De Mestral had been hiking when he noticed some seeds stuck to his clothes. the seeds were extremely difficult to remove. In fact, having looked at them under a microscope, de Mestral found that the seeds could only be removed provided they were turned a certain way and pulled hard. Even then, pieces remained attached to his clothing. De Mestral discovered that the seeds had natural hooks which latched onto the material. This inspired him to create the hook and loop fastener that was eventually called Velcro.
Supposing de Mestral hadn't been an engineer, he might not have looked at the seeds under the microscope.
That's a possibility. You or I might not have thought to look at the seeds under the microscope. However, so long as you keep your mind open, you'll stand a good chance of discovering something new.
Imagine that Velcro hadn't been invented. Our lives wouldn't be nearly as convenient.
Unit 3, page 26. Listen. Exercises 2 and 3. Listen to the dialogue.
Many inventions have changed the way we live, but which inventions of the last 50 years have changed the world the most? Dr. Rhonda Woodson, an engineer with Avantic Solutions, and Professor James Berry from the University of Exeter are here to share their opinions with us. Thank you for coming in today. Let's begin with you, Dr. Woodson. Would you agree that the mobile phone is one of the inventions that has changed the world the most?
Well, yes and no. Not the mobile phone itself, but I would say that text messaging has had a greater impact. Texting has changed the way we communicate. It is instant communication, and it doesn't require interaction with another person. It has also changed the way that we use language, for example, using letters as words, or numbers as words or letters.
That's an excellent point. As a professor, I see the influence of texting on a daily basis. Many students I work with use text language all the time. They don't realise they shouldn't be using texting language in academic writing.
Yes, some people believe that the form of the information is irrelevant so long as the message is understood, but that's simply not true. However, texting is an important invention because it has made life easier, and in my opinion, that's a common feature of the inventions that have changed our world most.
I agree. Another example of this is pre-packaged food. This invention has definitely made life easier and as a result has changed our world, but not necessarily for the better. At one time, families ate together and the meals were freshly prepared. Pre-packaged food has changed this. Now consumers short on time can prepare a frozen meal in the microwave and eat it alone on the sofa. This has had an effect on family relationships as well as health.
Absolutely. Pre-packaged meals are much higher in salt and fat. And there are still those people who believe microwave ovens are not the best way to cook food, although I must admit I use mine on a regular basis.
I do as well, and so do most people I know. Dr. Woodson has identified one of the key points of all the inventions that have changed our world, and that is that they have brought convenience to our lives. I wanted to mention another piece of technology which has definitely changed our world, and that is satellite technology.
Really? Why do you rank that so highly?
It has improved so many things that we use on a daily basis. For example, television has been greatly affected by it, as well as mobile phones and internet service in many places. And it has also had an impact on the military and even on transportation, in that it's allowed us to create global positioning system technology, or GPS, which is used in cars, aircraft and boats to assist navigation.
Interesting. Satellite technology wasn't on my list, but it is certainly important and is behind many inventions in those different categories that you've mentioned.
Fascinating. We'll be back in just a moment to discuss this further.
Unit 3, page 29. Language skills. Exercise 1. Listen and check.
What are you doing? I'm trying to solve this Sudoku puzzle, but I'm struggling with it at the moment. Something's not right.
Well, I'm sure you can solve it if you persevere.
Yes, if I think about it long enough, something will come to me and I'll have a breakthrough. I've never left a puzzle unfinished.
So you must enjoy doing Sudokus then.
Well, I enjoy them so long as I'm able to solve them quickly. Otherwise, they just frustrate me, like this one I'm doing at the moment.
Let me take a look. Let's change these two numbers. And this one.
Oh no, stop! I think you're just going to exacerbate the problem.
No, it's just a small setback. Now, let's make changes. Here, this number, and this number. Now look, I think that's it.
Wow, I think you're right. Amazing. Thank you. If only I were as smart as you.
Suppose I hadn't been able to help you. You would have faced your first puzzle defeat.
Everyday English 3. Teacher's Book. Page 106. Making positive suggestions. Exercise 1. Read and listen to the dialogue.
Hi, Karen. How are your exam results?
Bad news, I'm afraid. I failed my biology exam and I didn't get into Bristol University. If only I had spent more time studying biology. I really wanted to go to Bristol. Apart from the course, they've got great sports facilities and my sister's studying there.
That's too bad. But don't give up. Provided that you study a bit harder, you could apply again for next year.
Maybe. Do you know what my problem is? I've been too obsessed with tennis. I wish I'd never listened to the tennis coach who told me I could become a national champion. Why didn't I listen to my mother instead?
But Karen, you were the regional youth champion. Imagine if you hadn't listened to the coach. You wouldn't be the great tennis player that you are today. Why don't you think about trying to get sponsorship to continue your tennis training and study at the same time?
I suppose I could get a job. I could do some tennis coaching myself.
The important thing is, so long as you devote enough time to studying, you'll have a good chance of being successful.
Everyday English 3. Teacher's Book. Page 106. Making positive suggestions. Exercise 3. Listen and repeat. 1.
If only I had spent more time studying biology.
2.
I wish I'd never listened to the tennis coach.
3.
Why didn't I listen to my mother instead?
4. Everyday English 3. Teacher's Book. Page 106. Making positive suggestions. Exercises 4 and 5. Listen to the two dialogues. Dialogue 1.
I wish I'd brought some warmer clothes. I'd forgotten that it's much cooler in England compared with Spain in the summer.
Why don't you go out and buy some new clothes?
If only I had the money. I didn't bring any spare cash.
Supposing you asked Carl if you could borrow a jumper or a jacket. He's about your size.
Dialogue 2.
If only I had taken that job in London, I'd be much happier.
But living so far away from your family, you might be just as unhappy.
But at least I would have a permanent job. I can't find a job here.
Listen, how about looking at your CV again? Provided that you focus on your experiences and abilities, companies will see your potential. What are you doing this evening?